And then, so what are your thoughts about prolonged fasting?
I don't think anyone over the age of 35 should ever do it. And that's basically Doug Padden-Jones developed the concept of a catabolic crisis. Uh, People always talk about aging and they sort of look at it like it's a slow curve. It's not a slow curve. It's a series of catabolic incidents. You'll break a leg. You'll get COVID. You'll be sick for a while. You're in bed rest. During bed rest, a person over 40 can lose 7-10 pounds of muscle mass in a week. And we know that they can't regain it. So that's the same thing that can happen during fasting. I don't think anybody over the age of 40 should ever fast for more than 36 hours. I think that's an absolute mess because the muscle mass you're going to lose is permanent. The whole issue of muscle-centric health metabolism is that muscle is your only flexible metabolic tissue in the body. Everything else has a set rate. That's what resting metabolic rate is. And so we know that carbohydrate, for example, your base rate, you can use 80 to 100 grams. Every gram of carbohydrate you use above that has to be used by muscle. And if it's not used by muscle, it has to be put into fat. And so we know that that threshold is around, and I used the term glucose tolerance, carbohydrate tolerance. We know that that's around 30 to 40 grams at a meal. The average American has 60 to 100 grams per meal. So where's the body doing it? Basically, muscle can use carbohydrates maybe 10 grams per hour and sort of baseline, which kind of adds up to that 130 number. Beyond that, it has to be physical activity. And the range of that goes from about 40 to 70 grams per hour. So for Americans to justify 300 grams of carbohydrates per day, they have to have 3 hours of intense exercise per day. And nobody's doing that. And that's why we have obesity. And when you have carbohydrates at that level, now what you have is excess insulin, and that's what causes insulin resistance. That's what causes fatty liver. That's what leads to the high triglycerides, and that's what leads to obesity. So it's an issue of people need to understand that carbohydrates are one of the most dangerous things inside the body. It has its own disease. It's called diabetes. And so the body controls glucose and blood sugar very tightly. But when you expose it day after day to more than it can handle, now you begin to destroy the regulations. We're continuously exposing the body to too many grain carbohydrates and sugars. Let me add one more thing to the muscle thing. One of the things people also need to recognize, there's sort of this fear of fat. Healthy muscle at rest, you and I sitting here at the moment, our muscles should be using 80% fat. Glucose is not a good fuel. You only use it when you're under stress, higher activity. If you're extremely out of shape, walking up a flight of steps will be all glucose. But for people who are in shape, you should be 80% fat. So people have this saying, "Oh, I shouldn't eat fat." Well, actually, that's what muscle wants to use. If you're healthy, that's the best fuel.
They'll say that if you eat too much protein, it's going to cause cardiovascular disease like heart attacks, strokes. What do you think?
Well, there's absolutely no relationship to protein to that. That relationship is epidemiology have tried to relate red meats and things like that to cardiovascular. Um, and we've done some research. I did some research with the American Egg Board, for example. I'll use that as an example then. If you take eggs just in the U.S., the NHANES surveys, and you look at eggs related to obesity and diabetes and heart disease, you'll see that eggs relate to all of those diseases. But if you then take out the people who only eat their eggs at fast food restaurants, if you take them out of the mix, all of a sudden eggs actually reduce obesity, reduce heart disease, reduce diabetes. So there's an issue of environment. And if you look a little closer, the people who eat all their eggs at fast food have higher body weight. They smoke more, they drink more, they have less fiber, they just go down the line. Every aspect of their health is less. And so the reality is that the red meat they had at the fast food restaurant with their French fries and the buns and the French fry, it was actually the only thing that had any nutrition value. So there's an association, of the company it keeps, and it has nothing to do with the actual protein. So in terms of
What about too much protein is bad on the kidneys?
that's a great one. We just had a protein summit here in Chicago 2 weeks ago, and that was an interesting topic. The protein researchers say that, and I agree, is total nonsense. The origins of that is that people who have kidney failure, renal failure, then you have to reduce the solutes in the diet. And protein, urea is one of those things you have to reduce because there's no way to get rid of it. So Lord, but then the question is, does protein cause kidney failure? And in fact, actually low protein diets reduce kidney function. It's not high protein. High protein diets actually increase the size of the kidney and increase the glomerular filtration rate. It actually makes the kidney more efficient. And we've done that in our studies. So the idea that protein causes kidney failure is nonsense. If you have kidney failure, then you have to think about protein. And there's an interesting ongoing debate at what point should you reduce it? How bad before? Because as soon as you reduce reduce protein, the kidney will shrink in size and the efficiency goes down. So you'll make it worse. So there's an ongoing debate in the nephrology field as to even during renal failure, when should you do it? But anyway, bottom line is that protein is actually very important for the health of the kidney.